Here we are at a nice hotel in Solihull with a gentleman who was the original person to create the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Good afternoon, or good evening now as it is, to Stu Bradbury. How are you?
Good evening, yes, very well, thank you. Yeah.
Let's talk about your history in the sport first, and a little bit about how you came into the sport. What your involvement with. A lot of people out there won't know you. Some of the people will know you. So it's just a little bit of an influx into where you originally got involved in British drag racing.
Well, I got involved actually years ago. Funnily enough, used to be in a pop group, and I went to Bedford to the Windsor, not Windsor. What's it? Woburn. Crikey, can't think now. And we were doing a gig there for the Duke of Bedford, and in the evening, and so during the day we've got nothing to do, so we wandered around the grounds. Wandering around the grounds, came upon this display of hot rods and dragsters. Took my eye. I thought, these weird things, you know what I mean? Looked at them, whatever. Young lad came over to me, or he was a young lad then, very small chap, Alan Herridge. Bootsy. And it walked over, started to sort of tell me all about these cars, introduced me to the cars, and to other people there, and I think Brian Sparrow was there, and a few other people, a chap called John Bennett, who was then the chairman of the British Hot Rod Association, as it was then. And, I thought, quite interesting. So, obviously put the paperwork up and whatever, took it back home, and eventually I joined. Probably about a year later, I got a letter from John Bennett saying that he was looking for somewhere for him and his wife to stay, because they were thinking of having a permanent drag strip in our part of the world, which was obviously Santapod. So we thought, okay, yeah, that's not a problem. Couldn't find anywhere, so my mum and dad said, well, why not have him stay here? It's not a problem. We've got a spare room, and that's what happened. So John and Anne, his first wife, stayed with us, and of course then I got to go up to Santapod. The first time I went up there, actually met with Bob Phelps and Ernie Braddock, who was the landowner. I don't know whether everybody remembers Ernie, but
we used to sit outside and counting the people coming in.
Well, yeah, the first time I met Ernie, funnily enough, he was talking to Bob, and he used to smoke roll-up cigarettes, and he'd got this, well, it looked like the stub end of a roll-up cigarette, and he got it in his mouth, and he was trying to get the last mean drags out of the end of this, burning the end of his fingers and his lips. He was determined he was going to see it through to the end. But anyway, so he did and stomped it out. But that's the first time I met Ernie Braddock and Bob. And at that time, obviously, there was absolutely nothing on the raceway. It was just just like an old airfield, really. All the grass poking through the runways and everything. And obviously, we all rode onto the raceway, or onto the actual airfield then, onto the main runway. And that was it, really. And it all started from there. Yeah, and then I got involved. I got the job keeping the crowd back, first of all.
So was that more of a run what you brung sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, it was a sort of a meeting, really. It was obviously nothing like we run today, but yeah, I suppose a run what you brung really would describe it well. And it was fantastic, really. And then I thought, well, I don't know, it was Brian Holmes on the start line. He was the first starter at Santapod, and Brian was all resplendent in his yellow and red jacket and his white jeans, the flags and everything, and loads of girls all round him and whatever, and I thought, that's the job I want. I thought, that's got to be the job for me.
I want that one.
Yeah, so eventually I managed to get onto the start line crew. Then I became assistant chief starter, and I think Brian left in 1967 to go to California and start a business up in California. And I took over the job as a starter. So that's how I originally got into it. And as they say, the rest is history, really.
Let's talk about the people that that have obviously you've experienced over the years. Let's talk about some of your good memories of the times.
Ooh, memories. I mean, there's a lot of those.
Not the cars.
Some I can't talk about.
No, absolutely.
But we never used to be short of a few young ladies, shall we say? So that was.
I've seen many pictures.
Yeah, that was all good stuff. But I mean, just being involved. I mean, obviously with the Commando drag racing team coming over with Alex Strand and all those guys, EJ Potter on the motorcycle with the Chevy engine in. All those
and
sort of
Garlets.
Yeah, Garlets.
Was you involved in getting those over here?
No, that was all down to Bob. Bob Phelps was the He did all that and got them all over to come over. And I mean, it was just fantastic seeing all these guys and absolutely brilliant.
Must have been an awesome experience for yourself being on the start line with the likes of Garlets and everyone else. And yeah,
absolutely fantastic. You know, when you see these guys, before that we'd only ever seen them on videos and well, it wasn't the videos then, but they were films, cine films, and to have these guys actually at Santapod was phenomenal. You know, really, really phenomenal.
So when did you sort of back away from the sport to do what you know? Obviously you're doing your stuff now, but when did you sort of start to back away from it? Really?
I suppose in 1990, really, at that time, Avon Park as it was then. I used to work for John Wolf Racing, and Dave Riswick had gone into partnership with Anthony Hodges and a couple of other guys, and also Arnold Burton of Burton Taylors, to develop Avon Park,
which we were involved with initially for the PA system. So so that was a big project, wasn't it? Yeah. But unfortunately, it didn't work out the way that it did. No.
Because actually the NHRA were also involved in that. Not many people know that.
That's Mr. Olsen.
Yeah, and that was as we've got here tonight, Carl, along with Bernie, who was involved with it as well. And but unfortunately, it didn't come off. If it had done, I think whether it would have been any different, I don't know. You just don't know. But
it's one of those situations where if it had come off the way that it should have done. Then you would have had two tracks over here, which would have been absolutely awesome. There's two tracks now, and not knocking Shakespeare County Raceway at all. But Santapod is still the European favourite. It's the main but what the work that you was putting into Avon Park at the time, the new grandstands and everything else that was going on was a huge project. But it worked very much, and it's still there now. But it stayed the same. And that's the problem, isn't it?
And it's investment money, and as we all know, that's very difficult. Difficult then, and it's difficult, even more difficult now, to get investment into drag racing. You know, Santapod, I think, have done a phenomenal job. You know, the guys there, and it's just come on in over the last probably 10, 15, probably more than that now, probably more like 20 years now. I think it's come on quite a lot, and thank goodness.
You've got the new VIP suite there as well at the pod.
We've got to keep up with the you know, what's going on you know, in the motorsport world, and you know, sort of up our game a bit to get in the big people. You've got to have somebody somewhere to take these big corporate sponsors and people that from, you know, Aston Martin or whatever, which we've had up there before now. And wine and dine them. That's the way things are.
That's it, isn't it? But nowadays, you see, you're dealing with the likes of Aston Martin and companies like that. You're dealing with the likes of Ford now. Completely different ball game. And there's always this big speculation about money and where you put your money and everything else. So, you know, ultimately, it's a big ask, isn't it, now? But Santapod have invested the money. They're putting the money back into the track. And it's working tremendously, and obviously there's a lot more that can be done there. So, you know, but at the moment it's one of the favourite tracks in European drag racing, and that's where it needs to be continued, really. It's
good to see that it's, you know, it's improving, that it's, you know, it's getting on, and it's But like you say, we've still got a lot to do, Nigel. We still need to push it out and let people know drag racing's there, and that it's not just, it's not like sort of stock cars. It's a proper sport, and it's an exciting sport to watch.
It's amount of money as well now. It doesn't matter what class you're in now and what budget you've got. That budget gets used in drag racing, doesn't it? And that's a huge thing. Top fuel now, ridiculous amounts of money.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, Dave Travis was saying earlier on that, in them days it was, to insure himself, it was like £17 a second.
Yes, that's right.
But that's just a small cost.
Yeah.
But now, who knows how much it would cost?
Yeah.
And you're doing almost, like another 100 miles an hour further than what these guys were doing.
Yeah.
It's a lot more money.
Yeah.
And it's 8,000 horsepower rather than 2,000 horsepower.
2,000 in those days. I mean, we're talking. Well, we think 8,000. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever dynoed a car, but it's got to be in that era. Somewhere in that sort of area. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. But awesome bits of kit. But I don't know where we're going. I mean, that's what people come to see is Top Fuel. Unfortunately,
the television. Unfortunately, the television and Pro Mod is a very, very big class now.
Well, that's like, I think Pro Mod is like the old funny cars used to be.
Yeah.
They're absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, really, really good.
The Heritage, obviously Boots, you had a funny car, and and even back in the day, Nobby Hills had funny cars and everything else. Hound Dog 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. Yeah, but they were the funny cars of the day. Yeah, and and now it's a completely different ball game. But it's a hell of a lot of money to run a car now.
It is. Yeah. No, you need big bucks. You need big sponsors, and it's like for the likes of Andy Carter bringing Lucas Oil into it. I think they probably would have come in at some point, but it was Andy's tenacity and determination to get them involved, and he did that, and I think he gave them a really good push for their product over here.
He was also taking the car to events and everything else and pushing the product and everything else, and that's what you need. You can't be a quarter of a mile racer with a big sponsor and not take the vehicle elsewhere.
You've got to look after. As you know, I was on the Lucas team, and a lot of time we were on cold raceways, Santapod when it was freezing wet, but you had to be there pushing the Lucas brand, and have the display car there and talk to people about it. And sometimes it's quite boring because you're asking or you get asked the same questions over and over again, but that's what it's all about. You need to do it. It needs to be done.
What's the future in drag racing for you now? Are you just going to hold on to the Hall of Fame now, or?
I think we're going to try and go up a game with the Hall of Fame. I mean, we've been very fortunate to have both the clubs to really piggyback it on for the since 2006. We're going to try and move it up a notch and probably have our own Hall of Fame banquet eventually, where we'll invite all past Hall of Fame inductees and obviously press and so on, and just give it a bit more of a boost, and obviously hopefully take it along with what Santapod were trying to do and just up the sort of profile a bit, So that's the. But again, we've got to have money to do it, and we're looking for new sponsors. Well, we will be looking for new sponsors. At the moment, we've got US Automotive, and without US Automotive giving us the initial money to start it off, which was about £1,200, it would have never got off the ground. So without them, we would have been, and they've supported the Hall of Fame since that day.
So you need to now. You need some sponsors on board to appreciate the situation with the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame. So if there's anyone that's out there listening right now and you feel like you'd like to sponsor this fantastic organisation, then please do give us a call or get in touch with us and we'll put you in touch.
Get on the website. If you just plumb in there British Drag Racing Hall of Fame in Google, it'll pop up, click on it, it'll take you to the website, or even go into Euro Dragster, left hand side on the menu there, that'll take you straight in and it gives you all the information and websites, how to contact us, So yeah, any new sponsors, any new money is, and we'll do our best to give them the best coverage we can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Stu. Have a great evening and enjoy yourself.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.